Tom Miller stood in his garage workshop, hands steady as they had been in combat 30 years ago, carefully reassembling an old M134 minigun. At 62, retirement hadn't dulled his engineer's mind or his soldier's instincts. Both would prove vital in the days to come, though he didn't know it yet. The radio crackled in the background, interrupting his work. We interrupt this broadcast for an emergency announcement. Unknown objects have been detected entering Earth's atmosphere. Military forces worldwide are on high alert. Citizens are advised to remain calm and... The broadcast cut off. Tom's fingers tightened around his tools as every screen in the workshop flickered to life simultaneously. A face appeared, if you could call it that. Purple-skinned, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, the alien looked down at humanity with unmistakable contempt. People of Earth, the creature spoke in perfect English, its voice resonating from every speaker. We are the Dominion. Your world has been chosen for integration into our empire. Your technology is primitive, your weapons laughably obsolete. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Tom's weathered face hardened. He'd heard similar speeches before, from men who thought their advanced weapons made them gods. He'd buried enough of those men to know better. Within hours, the world's military leaders gathered at an emergency UN session. Tom watched the broadcast, sitting in his favorite chair, a cup of coffee growing cold in his hands. The aliens had sent a representative, a towering figure in gleaming armor that seemed to ripple like liquid metal. Your most powerful weapons, the alien ambassador declared, activating a holographic display, are these crude devices you call nuclear warheads. We have neutralized them all. The hologram showed missiles dissolving into harmless particles. Your conventional weapons are even more primitive. Projectile weapons? Explosives? We left such barbaric tools behind millennia ago. To demonstrate, the ambassador raised his arm. His armor shifted, forming an elegant weapon that emitted a beam of pure energy. It carved through a block of titanium like butter. Our energy weapons and shields render your antiquated arsenal useless. You have 24 hours to submit to our authority. The UN erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted, argued, some even begged. But Tom noticed something during the demonstration, something that made his engineer's mind race. When the alien fired his weapon, there was a brief flicker in his shield, barely noticeable, but there. Tom's phone rang. General Roberts, an old friend from his service days, spoke without preamble. Tell me you saw that, Tom. The shield fluctuation? Yeah, I caught it. We're gathering everyone with combat engineering experience at Fort Bradley. The world's pooling resources, but we need ideas. Fast. Tom looked at the partially disassembled minigun on his workbench. Those shields, he said slowly, they're designed to stop energy weapons like theirs, right? Modern stuff? That's the working theory. Why? A smile crossed Tom's face, the same smile he'd worn before every successful mission. What if we went older? Much older? Their shields might be calibrated to stop everything they consider a threat, but what about weapons they think are too primitive to be dangerous? Silence on the line. Then, get to Fort Bradley. Now. As Tom packed his tools, the alien broadcast played again on every channel. They were so certain of their superiority, so convinced their advanced technology made them invincible. Tom thought about all the primitive weapons humanity had created over the centuries. About how sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Let them laugh at humanity's obsolete weapons. Tom had learned long ago that it wasn't about how advanced your weapon was, it was about finding the right tool for the job. And he had a feeling that somewhere in humanity's arsenal of primitive weapons lay the key to showing these aliens just how dangerous Earth could be. He took one last look at the minigun before heading out. Sometimes the best solutions were the ones your enemy thought too simple to fear. And Tom Miller intended to give the Dominion a lesson in respecting the basics of warfare, one high-speed projectile at a time. Fort Bradley buzzed with activity as military personnel from around the world gathered to face humanity's greatest threat. Tom stood at the back of the crowded briefing room, watching the alien ambassador's demonstration for the third time on the giant screen. "Observe," the purple-skinned creature said, its 4 eyes glowing with pride. "Your primitive ballistic weapons cannot harm us." On screen, a tank fired its main gun at an alien soldier. The round simply disappeared into a shimmer of blue energy surrounding the target. General Roberts paused the video. "Their shields are like nothing we've ever seen. Every modern weapon we've tried has failed. Tanks, jets, guided missiles, all useless." "Show them the Moscow footage," Tom called out. The room turned to look at him. The general nodded grimly and switched feeds. Shaky phone camera footage showed an alien patrol in Red Square. Their liquid metal armor gleamed in the sun as they fired energy weapons at fleeing civilians. But then something unexpected happened. An old Russian veteran, probably in his 70s, emerged from a museum with what looked like a World War II-era PPSH-41 submachine gun. He opened fire on the aliens. Most rounds dissipated against their shields, but Tom saw it again, that slight flicker, stronger this time. "Stop," Tom said. "Rewind. Play it at quarter speed." The footage rolled back. Frame by frame, they watched the ancient submachine gun spray its rounds. Tom pointed at the screen. "There. The shield fluctuation gets stronger with each bullet impact. The frequency of fire matters." A young officer scoffed. "That's just interference from their weapons." "No," Tom said, moving to the front of the room. "Their shields are calibrated to stop modern threats, shaped charges, armor-piercing rounds, plasma rifles. But rapid-fire kinetic weapons, especially older ones? They might not register as enough of a threat to trigger full shield strength." He pulled up technical specifications on the screen. Modern military weapons sacrifice rate of fire for accuracy and stopping power. But old-school weapons like the minigun? They put out thousands of rounds per minute. Overwhelming force through sheer volume of fire. "That's absurd," another officer protested. "You're suggesting we fight an advanced alien race with outdated technology?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." Tom brought up designs on his tablet. "Their shields are like a filter, tuned to stop what they consider real threats. But a storm of smaller, faster projectiles might slip through, death by 1,000 cuts." The room erupted in arguments. The general raised his hand for silence. "Tom, even if you're right, where would we get enough old weapons? And how would we modify them to be effective?" Tom smiled. "Every museum, every collection, every military storage facility still has them. And I know just how to upgrade them without making them so advanced that the shields register them as a serious threat." "You want to stake Earth's survival on a theory about antique guns?" someone asked incredulously. Before Tom could answer, alarms blared throughout the base. On the main screen, news footage showed alien ships descending on major cities worldwide. Energy weapons carved through modern defenses like they were paper. "We don't have time for lengthy debates," Tom said firmly. "Their shields have a weakness, I stake my life on it. Give me a team, access to old weapon stockpiles, and a workshop. Let me prove it." General Roberts studied his old friend's face for a long moment. Outside, the sound of energy weapons grew closer. Finally, he nodded. "You have 48 hours. After that, we'll have no choice but to surrender." Tom gathered his tools. As he headed for the workshop, he heard the alien ambassador's voice on the news again, still mocking Earth's primitive defenses. Let them laugh, he thought. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. And he was about to remind the aliens why humanity's primitive weapons had survived countless wars. In his mind, he could already hear the sweet sound of miniguns spinning up to speed. Soon, the aliens would hear it too. The underground bunker beneath Fort Bradley hummed with activity. Tom wiped sweat from his forehead as he examined the array of weapons spread across the workbenches. World War II-era machine guns, Vietnam-era miniguns, and even some Cold War relics, all gathered from museums and military storage facilities across the country. Perfect, he muttered, running his hand along the barrel of an M134. They're all perfect. His team consisted of an unlikely mix: Bill, a museum curator who knew these weapons inside and out, Jack, a mechanical engineer who could fabricate anything, and Mike, a retired drill sergeant who'd maintained these obsolete weapons for decades. Above them, the aliens had established their first ground base just 20 miles from the fort. Their ships hung in the sky like purple thunderclouds, occasionally firing energy weapons at any modern military vehicle foolish enough to approach. The feeding mechanism needs to be faster, Tom explained, pointing to the minigun's internal workings. The aliens' shields flicker most when hit by sustained fire. We need to push these past their original specs without making them too advanced. Jack looked up from his work. The original M134 did about 6,000 rounds per minute. We've got it to 8,000, but the barrels are reaching critical stress points. What about heat distribution? Mike asked, examining the barrel assembly. Tom grabbed a piece of chalk and started sketching on a nearby wall. We'll modify the barrel cooling system. Nothing fancy, just better heat sinks and reinforced feed mechanisms. Low-tech solutions. Bill arrived pushing a cart loaded with crates. Found these in the Army Museum's deep storage. Original ammunition boxes from the 60s. The primers are still good. Tom opened a crate and held up a belt of ammunition. These are perfect. The aliens won't see them as a threat, they'll register as primitive projectiles on their sensors. But 8,000 of these per minute? He smiled. That's a different story. Their work was interrupted by rumbling from above. Everyone looked up at the ceiling as dust filtered down. They're getting closer, Mike said grimly. Then we work faster, Tom replied. He turned to his team. The aliens think they've won. Their bases are lightly defended because they believe our weapons can't hurt them. That's their weakness, pride. Through the next 18 hours, they worked without rest. Old weapons were stripped down, modified, reassembled. They kept the changes simple: better cooling, faster feed rates, reinforced barrels. Nothing that would register as advanced technology to alien sensors. Tom insisted on testing each modification himself. The underground firing range echoed with the sound of gunfire as they pushed the weapons to their limits. Each successful test brought them closer to their goal. Listen to that sound, Mike said as another modified minigun spun up to speed. Like angry bees in a metal hive. Word spread through the resistance network. Other groups around the world began gathering old weapons, following Tom's modification plans. The aliens, focused on neutralizing modern military threats, paid little attention to these primitive preparations. Late on the second night, General Roberts visited their workshop. He stared at the array of modified weapons with a mix of hope and skepticism. Tomorrow, Tom said, not looking up from his work. We'll be ready tomorrow. The general nodded. The aliens have demanded our final surrender at noon. They're planning some kind of demonstration of their power. Perfect timing. Tom stood up, stretching his tired muscles. They'll be so busy showing off their advanced technology, they won't notice our little surprise until it's too late. He walked over to the wall where they'd mounted their first successfully modified minigun. Its barrels gleamed under the workshop lights, 6 harbingers of humanity's counterattack. Let them come, Tom said, patting the weapon. Let them bring their energy shields and plasma weapons. Sometimes the old dogs bite hardest. Outside, alien ships continued their patrol, their crews confident in their technological superiority. They never noticed the stream of trucks leaving Fort Bradley under cover of darkness, carrying what they would have dismissed as museum pieces. Tomorrow, they would learn just how deadly humanity's primitive weapons could be. Dawn broke over an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of the city. Tom and his team had chosen this location carefully, far enough from the alien base to avoid immediate detection, but close enough to draw a patrol if needed. Testing area is set, Jack reported, finishing the setup of ballistic gel targets at various ranges. They'd shaped the gel blocks to roughly match alien body proportions, and covered them with energy shield emitters salvaged from destroyed alien equipment. Mike finished mounting the modified M134 minigun on its test stand. The weapon looked almost identical to its original version, exactly as Tom had planned. No fancy upgrades, no obvious modifications. Just carefully refined mechanics pushing the old design to its limits. Shield emitters are online, Bill announced, checking readings on a jury-rigged monitor. They're producing the same field strength we recorded from alien armor. Tom nodded, running through final checks. Remember, we only get one shot at this. The moment we start firing, every alien sensor in range will pick up the weapon signature. They gathered behind the firing position. Tom settled behind the minigun, his hands fitting naturally onto the grips. Decades of muscle memory took over as he aligned the sights. Starting record, Jack said, activating cameras to document the test. Shield strength at 100%. Tom took a deep breath. Spinning up. The minigun's distinctive whine filled the warehouse, rising in pitch as the barrels reached speed. Tom had always loved that sound, like an angry metal wasp nest about to unleash hell. 8,000 rounds per minute, Mike confirmed, watching the RPM gauge. Feeds are clean. Heat sinks nominal. Fire when ready, Bill said. Tom squeezed the trigger. The weapon roared to life, its familiar chattering now heightened to an almost musical pitch by their modifications. Tracers streamed toward the first target, impacting the energy shield in a spectacular light show. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. The shields held, deflecting the rounds just as they had in previous tests with normal weapons. But Tom kept firing. 3 seconds in, they saw it, the shield flickered, just like in the Moscow footage. 5 seconds, and the flicker became a strobe effect. At 7 seconds, the shield collapsed entirely, and rounds began tearing through the ballistic gel target. "Holy shit," Jack whispered. "Next target." Tom ordered, swinging the weapon right. The second shield lasted only 5 seconds. The third collapsed in 4. "Theory confirmed," Bill shouted over the gunfire. "Rapid kinetic impacts are overwhelming their shield frequency. The system can't adapt fast enough." Suddenly, alarms blared from their perimeter sensors. "Alien patrol incoming," Mike reported. 3 units, ground vehicles. Tom made a split-second decision. "Everyone to fallback positions. I'll handle this." "You can't take them alone," Jack started. "We need to know if this works against their actual shields," Tom cut him off. "Get to safety. Document everything." The team retreated to hidden observation posts as 3 alien vehicles rounded the corner, their liquid metal armor gleaming in the morning sun. They stopped in a triangle formation, obviously expecting to find primitive humans playing with obsolete weapons. The alien commander emerged, his 4 eyes scanning the warehouse with obvious disdain. His voice boomed through an external speaker, "Humans with projectile weapons? How quaint." Tom smiled behind the minigun. "Welcome to the gun show." He opened fire. The alien commander's shield lit up like a Christmas tree, and then vanished in a spray of purple blood. The other aliens barely had time to react before their shields failed too, their advanced armor useless against the storm of high-velocity rounds. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. 3 dead aliens and their vehicles riddled with holes from a weapon they dismissed as primitive. Tom's radio crackled. "Command, this is Observer 1. Are you seeing this?" General Roberts' voice came back, tight with controlled excitement. "We saw it. Tell Tom he has a green light. Operation Retro is a go." Tom looked at the smoking minigun, then at the alien corpses. Time to remind these folks why humanity kept these old weapons around. Sometimes the best solution is the simple solution. In the distance, alien alert sirens began to wail. The real war was about to begin. Word spread like wildfire through the resistance networks. Within days, military warehouses and museums worldwide were emptied of their old automatic weapons. The aliens, still focused on neutralizing modern armies, barely noticed the movement of what they considered obsolete junk. Tom stood in the command center at Fort Bradley, watching dots of light appear on the global map. Each one represented a resistance cell reporting successful weapons modification. Russia, China, Britain, France, old Cold War stockpiles were being revived and upgraded. Berlin reporting in, a communications officer announced. "They've modified 30 MG3s, Paris has 50 AA-52s ready." Moscow. "Moscow says they have a surprise prepared." General Roberts smiled. The Russians always did love their heavy weapons. The alien command ship hung over New York, its massive purple hull blocking out the sun. Their leaders had gathered for what they planned as humanity's final surrender ceremony. Instead, they were about to get a very different kind of party. "All teams report ready," Mike said, checking the tactical display. "We've got modified weapons in position around every major alien base. Just waiting for your signal." Tom picked up the secure radio. "Remember, short bursts first. Let their shields adjust to what they think is normal gunfire. Then, full auto. Don't let up until their shields fail. Maintain fire after shield collapse, their armor isn't designed to stop kinetic weapons." He looked at the general, who nodded. "Send it." Tom keyed the radio. "All units, Operation Retro is go. I say again, Operation Retro is go. Give 'em hell." Around the world, resistance fighters emerged from hiding. In London, a World War II veteran led a team with modified Bren guns. In Beijing, museum curators turned their exhibits into working weapons. In Rio, old military stockpiles provided enough firepower to arm hundreds. The aliens' response was predictably arrogant. Their patrol ships moved lazily toward the attacks, shields humming with energy that had stopped every modern weapon thrown at them. They expected another futile display of primitive human resistance. They were wrong. In Paris, modified AA-52s opened up on alien patrols. The French resistance had mounted dozens on the upper floors of buildings, creating killing zones in the streets. Alien shields flickered and died under the sustained fire, their owners falling in sprays of purple blood. Moscow's surprise turned out to be a warehouse full of restored DSHK heavy machine guns. The Russians had modified them to fire even faster than their original specs, creating a wall of lead that turned an alien command post into scrap metal. "They're beginning to realize," Jack reported, monitoring alien communications. "Patrol ships are pulling back. Ground forces are attempting to adjust shield frequencies." Tom grinned. "Too late. Those shields can only adjust so much without compromising their protection against energy weapons. They built their defenses assuming we'd try to match their technology level. They never considered we'd go backward." Reports flooded in from around the globe. Alien ships falling from the sky, riddled with holes from weapons they dismissed as antiques. Ground forces retreating from what they'd thought would be easy victories. Their technological superiority meant nothing against the simple physics of thousands of rounds per minute. The alien commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, no longer smooth and confident. "This is impossible. Your weapons are obsolete. They cannot harm us." Tom keyed his radio one more time. "Here's a history lesson for you. We didn't keep these old weapons around because we couldn't make better ones. We kept them because sometimes the old ways work best. Consider this your introduction to Human Military History 101. As if to punctuate his point, the distinctive sound of miniguns spinning up echoed across 1,000 battlefields. The aliens were about to learn why humanity had never completely abandoned these primitive but proven weapons. The counterattack had begun, and Earth's invaders were learning a harsh lesson: never underestimate old dogs with old tricks. The alien command ship over New York cast an ominous shadow over Manhattan. Inside Fort Bradley's command center, Tom studied tactical displays showing resistance forces converging on the city. Operation Retro had succeeded beyond their wildest expectations, but this would be different. This was their shot at the alien leadership itself. "All teams in position," Mike reported. "We've got modified weapons on every rooftop within range. Russians provided those DSHKs we requested. Chinese sent their entire stockpile of Type 67s. Tom nodded, checking his own modified minigun one last time. "Remember, they'll be expecting us now. Their shields will be at maximum power. That's why we brought everything," General Roberts said, gesturing at the warehouse behind them. Hundreds of modified automatic weapons had been assembled, a symphony of primitive firepower waiting to be unleashed. The alien commander's voice thundered from their ship: "Humans. Your primitive uprising ends today. We have adjusted our shields. Your projectile weapons will no longer." "Now!" Tom ordered. From every direction, resistance fighters opened fire. The sound was overwhelming, thousands of automatic weapons creating a wall of sound that shattered windows for blocks. The alien ship's shields lit up like a purple aurora as they struggled to deflect the barrage. "Shield frequency is fluctuating," Jack reported from his monitoring station. "They're trying to adapt, but they can't maintain full coverage against this much sustained fire." Tom watched through binoculars as the massive shield began to strobe. "All units, maintain fire. Pour it on." The aliens launched fighters in response, but they flew right into prepared kill zones. Modified M2 Brownings, mounted on rooftops, turned the sky into a deadly web of tracer fire. Alien pilots, accustomed to relying on their shields, had never learned to dodge. "Moscow unit reporting in," the radio crackled. "DSHKs are having significant effect on their smaller ships. Shields failing under sustained fire." "Beijing confirms," another voice added. "Type 67s are penetrating fighter armor once shields collapse. They're dropping like flies." The alien command ship tried to raise its altitude, but centuries of human anti-aircraft experience paid off. Coordinated fire from multiple positions kept it pinned in place as more and more rounds penetrated its weakening shields. "Their shield frequency is completely destabilized," Jack shouted over the gunfire. "It's now or never." Tom grabbed his minigun. "Follow me." He led a team into the building closest to the alien ship. They'd prepared for this, setting up firing positions with clear lines of sight to the command deck. The alien leader appeared on their view screens again, but this time its voice held a note of panic. "How is this possible? Your weapons are centuries behind ours." "That's the point," Tom muttered, spinning up his minigun. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." He opened fire, joined by dozens of other positions. The alien ship's shields, already strained to breaking point, couldn't handle the concentrated barrage. Purple energy fields flickered and died, leaving the command deck exposed. The alien leader's last transmission cut off mid-sentence as thousands of primitive rounds shredded their command center. The massive ship, its brain destroyed, began to list to one side. "All units, clear the area," Tom ordered. "She's coming down." They watched from a safe distance as the pride of the alien fleet crashed into the East River, brought down by weapons its crew had mocked as obsolete. Across the world, other alien ships began to retreat, their invincible image shattered by humanity's inferior technology. General Roberts clasped Tom's shoulder. "They never saw it coming, did they? All that advanced technology, and they were defeated by basic physics." Tom smiled, patting his minigun. Pride comes before a fall. They were so focused on advancing their technology, they forgot that sometimes simple solutions work best. The sun broke through the clouds as the alien ships fled Earth's atmosphere. Humanity had won, not by matching the aliens' advanced technology, but by proving that progress doesn't always mean moving forward. Sometimes, victory lies in remembering the lessons of the past. 1 month after the Battle of New York, Tom stood in the Smithsonian's new Resistance Gallery. His modified minigun held a place of honor among other weapons that had saved Earth. Next to it, a damaged piece of alien shield technology served as a reminder of how humanity's primitive weapons had overcome supposedly superior defenses. "The school kids love this exhibit," Bill said, now the gallery's curator. "Especially when we demonstrate the firing mechanisms. They can't believe these old weapons beat energy shields." Tom ran his hand along the minigun's barrels. "Sometimes the best technology isn't the newest technology. We won because we understood that. The alien invasion had changed Earth in unexpected ways. Nations that had once pointed nuclear weapons at each other now shared military knowledge freely. The old weapons that had saved humanity gained new respect, with many countries maintaining both advanced and primitive arsenals." "Latest report from the recovery teams," Jack said, walking up with a tablet. They'd been studying the alien wreckage, learning from their defeated enemy. "You were right about their shield design. They'd optimized it so much for energy weapons that they created a blind spot. Never thought they'd face sustained kinetic impacts at that rate." "Pride," Tom nodded. "They believed moving forward meant abandoning the past. They forgot that evolution keeps what works." The world's militaries had taken that lesson to heart. Modern weapons now stood alongside restored vintage arms. The Russians had already designed new rotary guns based on their experiences. Chinese factories were producing updated versions of old reliable designs. Mike appeared at the gallery entrance. "They're ready for you in the briefing room, Tom." In a secure facility beneath the museum, military leaders from around the world had gathered. The alien wreckage had yielded more than just technology, it had contained star charts, navigation data, and most importantly, evidence that the Dominion wasn't the only advanced civilization out there. "We've confirmed at least 3 other spacefaring races," General Roberts announced, pointing to a holographic display. "Some possibly more advanced than the Dominion. We need to be ready." "And we will be," Tom said, stepping forward. "But not by trying to copy their technology. We'll do it our way, combining the best of old and new." He brought up images of new weapon designs. They looked deceptively simple, but incorporated everything they'd learned. High rate of fire kinetic weapons alongside energy weapons. Shields that could stop both types of attacks. A perfect blend of past and future. The aliens thought they were superior because they'd abandoned primitive weapons, Tom continued. But that was their weakness. They lost the ability to think simply, to see basic solutions. "We won't make that mistake." The meeting continued as they planned Earth's defenses, but Tom's mind wandered back to that first day when the aliens had laughed at humanity's weapons. Their mockery had revealed their fundamental misunderstanding of human nature. "We didn't just create new tools, we learned from each one, building on what worked." Later, standing outside the museum, Tom watched the sunset paint the sky in colors that weeks ago had been blocked by alien ships. A group of kids ran past, making minigun sounds and pretending to fight aliens. Their parents, who had lived through the real thing, smiled indulgently. "Ready to head home?" Mike asked, joining him. Tom nodded, taking one last look at the museum. Inside, his minigun stood as a testament to humanity's greatest strength, not their technology, but their wisdom in knowing when to use it. The aliens had laughed at their primitive weapons, right up until those same weapons had sent them running. "You know," Tom said as they walked away, "I almost feel sorry for the next bunch that tries to invade." Almost. Behind them, the setting sun caught the museum's new motto, carved in stone, "The future learns from the past." Humanity had learned that lesson well. They were ready for whatever the galaxy might throw at them next, whether it required the latest technology or the oldest tricks in the book. Sometimes, after all, the best weapon wasn't the most advanced. Sometimes, it was just the right tool for the job.